Hi, my name is Andi Heaton and I'm a psychotherapist at a tiny little hospital down in Sussex. And my work down there is mainly based on, we're not a hospital that does tonsils and appendixes and all these run-of-the-mill stuff. We do things that are slightly more out of the ordinary, and we sort of recognise that slightly more out of the ordinary can come with a psychological and emotional response. And I'm really pleased to be here today, and thanks to Karen and to the other trustees of Facial Palsy UK for recognising fantastically that there is a psychological impact on having a palsy. So I'm going to talk to you today about my experience of working with patients with facial difference, facial palsy and other causes. It's really informal, so don't sit there thinking, what did she just say? Why is she talking psychobabble or anything like that? But if you don't understand something, just wave at me. If I don't answer, then just wave a bit harder. I'm really happy. There's going to be time for questions at the end, but as I say, if anything happens, that if I say anything you don't understand, just let me know. So as I say, I worked down in Sussex, this tiny little hospital, and the founding sort of surgeon, I think, was in the 1940s, 50s, a chap called Archie Mackinder, who was a plastic surgeon, and he operated on fighter pilots who had been injured in the Second World War. And although doing some really good surgical techniques, he recognised that often psychologically they were needing a bit of help as well. And what he did was first thing he did was put a pub into the hospital, which went down really well, and they all went across and had a couple of pints. But he also went into East Grinstead into the community and spoke to local people and said, look, these chaps have had a really tough time, can you have them round for supper? Or can you take them to the pub? Or can you take them to football, or whatever it was? And they really appreciated it, and East Grinstead became known as the town that didn't stare. And we've kind of kept that ethos in hospital now, that most of our work is patient-led and also multidisciplinary. So there's people like me involved, there's Charles doing the fantastic surgical stuff, and then me doing the other sort of side of it. So one of my roles is managing the facial palsy clinic, psychological therapy side of things. And it's just some stats about the number of new patients we saw in a year. So we saw 216 new patients and many, many more follow-ups. The highest age bracket was between 41 to 60 years old, and the highest, and 60% were female. We were just talking just now over lunch about why that number is the way it is. And from my point of view, possibly ladies are more likely to access help than men who maybe soldier on a bit more stoically. So when I'm in clinic, what do I look out for? Often in my experience, I'm the first person that's actually asked someone how they're feeling about their palsy. That the doctors are often very good at looking at functionality and how you're getting on with this and how you're getting on with that, but actually the sort of how does it feel inside and the emotional side of it sometimes gets a little bit overlooked. So what I'm looking for is getting a sense of who they perceive themselves to be. So I'll often throw the question back, well, tell me a bit about you, who are you? And sort of what can come out of that is, oh sorry, I've got to click on that one. What can come out of that is, I'm a mum, I'm a grandmother, I work, I do this, that and the other. And it's trying to get a sort of a feeling for how much people feel as though they're defined by their palsy, or how much it's stopping them doing or not stopping them doing. The word fine comes up all the time. I'm fine. And I've never quite understood what fine means, so it's a very individual thing. Just to give you a bit of sort of a flavour for it, there's a chap who came to the clinic who said he was fine, and he was a very successful person in the business world, and he had lots of pennies, and he had a very nice, lovely wife and lovely children, and he'd had a recurrent cancer here that had resulted in a quite significant palsy. And part of his job was to present to large groups of people, and he used to stand up on stage and announce himself and say, my name is, and I've got a facial palsy. And it was nothing to do with what he was there to present for, but his way of managing it was to get it out there first. And he came to me and he said, oh, it's very sweet of you to ask me this, dear, but I really don't need you, dear, and it's very sweet of you, dear, but I'm absolutely fine, dear. And then we kind of, in conversation, worked out that actually he had a lot of rituals that he undertook. To come into any medical appointment, he would wear the same shirt. And there was quite a lot of things was sort of holding him back. So his life was functioning really well, and he was really okay. underneath the sort of surface, there was quite a lot for him going on. And I did some outpatient work with him, and I saw him for about 8 sessions. And one of the things that we learnt that would be helpful for him was just to slow things down a bit. Everything was quick. So one of the homeworks I set him was to sit on a bench in a park for 20 minutes in his lunch hour, without his phone, without a book, without a newspaper, and just to be with himself and to see how that felt. And he looked at me as if I was completely bonkers. He was like, you know, people are going to think I'm a psychopath sitting in a park on my own, not talking, not doing anything. And I said, well, just give it a go. And he came back and he was crying. And I said, you know, how did you get on? And he said, I'd forgotten that the grass is green, and I'd forgotten that children's laughs are really lovely. And I just hadn't noticed it for a while. And it was just a way of sort of grounding him back with himself. So one of the, all the research sort of shows that a key indicator to overcoming any trauma or illness is a supportive social network. But there are other areas as well that people find difficult. I saw a builder recently in clinic who couldn't close his eye, and he was worried about working, getting dust into his eyes. And there was a receptionist, a lovely lady who worked in a hotel. And she wasn't too worried about the aesthetic, how she looked to other people, but she really struggled with forming words, certain words, because that's just the way her palsy had affected her. And I look out for sort of anything that I can help with around sort of socialising generally. I mean, eating out, especially in the early days of a palsy, is something I hear an awful lot about, and it can cause great anxiety. So any trauma or illness or incident in life, there are naturally many emotions which crop up. But what the brain does really protectively is it kind of goes on a sort of a cognitive sort of thinking level to start with. So if people are coming into hospital, they're obsessed, not obsessed, that's the wrong word, they're concerned with food in the freezer, or who's going to look after the kids, and all the sort of the practical things. And the emotions sometimes are left a little bit behind until later on. And sometimes people can find themselves in bother a bit later on, and these are just some of the feelings that people come up with. And depressed, vulnerable, powerless, there's loads of them. And then alongside the feelings are some typical thoughts which can come into the brain and sort of whiz around. And especially when thinking about going back to work, or going back to school, or socialising generally, some of the thoughts that can go in and just can whiz around. And some of the thoughts that we have are based on what we sort of call in the psychological world our own internal belief system. So, and these often stem from childhood. So if you've had a happy, harmonious childhood, some of the held beliefs can be that life should be fair. Life's always been fair so far, it should be fair now. Why have I got this palsy? Why's this happened to me? Or maybe if you haven't had the best start in life, life is never fair. This is yet something else we need to contend with. And I hear the words should, ought and must way too much. I should be over this, I should be doing this. I ought to be able to feel better, feel more confident about going to a wedding, having my photograph taken, and I don't. And it's just sort of punitive thinking about, it's a bit like someone putting a thumb on your forehead and going, why are you not? And we're doing it to ourselves. So it's just a helpful way to think about it. And then sort of from thoughts and beliefs on the previous slides, the associated sort of feelings can cause some common behaviours which can be broadly split into fight or flight. And I have this all the time. And fight or flight kind of goes back to the cavemen when they were confronted by a saber-toothed tiger, and they didn't know whether to fight it or to run away. And they sort of weigh it up and think, oh no, you're a bit big, I'm going to run away. And what it is it's any sort of traumatic or any sort of event that feels quite uncomfortable, anything that makes your tummy go funny and makes you feel a bit sort of churny. We sort of weigh up in our heads about whether we're going to run or whether we're going to stay and fight it out. And it's difficult situations that bring up the same physical response that the caveman had when he was confronted by the saber-toothed tiger. And the bloodstream's flooded with chemicals and neurotransmitters in our brain are in overdrive. And what it does is it sort of bypasses our rational mind. So it kind of moves us into sort of an attack mode. And sort of some common sort of behaviours that I hear from people who have had a palsy or had a facial difference is the flight side of things. Can be avoidance. I hear about avoidance a lot. When you're going to the hairdressers and sitting in front of the mirror, it just feels too hard. I know people that run past their mirrors. They still have mirrors up in the house, but they don't look at them. They try and get past them. Avoiding relationships for the fear of reaction. So sort of socially isolating. I don't really want to talk to. I mean, I had a chap recently who wouldn't have his children's friends back because he was too worried about what they were going to say or what they were going to ask. And the sort of the flip side of that is the sort of the fight side of it. So feeling angry and snappy. Road rage. I'm a great road rage person. It doesn't get me anywhere, but at 10 to 8 in the morning when I'm running late, I turn into Attila the Hun. But it's just a sort of a fight part of it. And all of these are normal. They're completely normal ways to think and behave and feel, but they're not always the most helpful way. So what I've done here is I've put up, this is what we call a basic CBT model, which is a cognitive behavioural therapy model. And as therapists, this is what we work with our patients on. So you've got the thoughts and beliefs at the top, you've got the feelings and how we feel it in the body down in the bottom, never do it right hand side. Action behaviours on the left hand side, and then sort of self-esteem in the middle. And this thoughts and beliefs part, if it's based on positive self-esteem, so if you take the example of being invited to a wedding, if you're having a day where you're feeling great, you think, oh great, you've been invited to a wedding, that's really nice, I'm looking forward to it. Some of the feelings that will probably emanate will be enjoyment, joy, excitement, great, I'm going to see new people, meet new people, see old people, it's going to be fantastic. So you're probably going to go to the wedding and have a good time. If however that middle bit is not looking so great, and self-esteem is a bit on the rubbish side, then the thoughts and beliefs might be, oh, I don't think I really want to go, and I don't think I really want to do it. Or do I want to do it? I don't really know. And then the feelings might be sort of quite depressed thinking, or anxiety-driven, or fear-driven. So I don't really want to meet new people today, I'm not really in the mood. So the actions and behaviours might be that you don't go and that you stay at home. So that's kind of the model that we work on, and what we work on in therapy is very much the thoughts and beliefs at the top, recognising the feelings, and then the actions and behaviours normally follow on from that. So, two key areas which I frequently hear in clinic and with outpatients is social situations and returning to work. And having a load of strategies, or having given it some thought and about thinking about how it might feel and weighing it up in your head can be a really helpful way of keeping some of the emotions in check. And the way we do it is by what we call, very neatly, the graded approach to goals, or what-if plans. So you kind of start with working out what it is you want to do. So it's a very simple yes or no question. Do I want to do this activity? Yes. So what you do then is what we plug it with a psychological full stop. So the answer is yes. So someone says, oh, this group was going out after work, do I want to go? Yes, I do. And then you plug it. And you don't let all those other irrational thoughts come, the what-if thoughts come flooding in. You just sit with it. And then notice how it feels. So you're kind of acknowledging your feelings about it. You know, is my tummy going around in the like a washing machine, or is my heart going bang, 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 or am I all jittery, shaky, or am I okay about it? So you're kind of acknowledging the feeling. Then you work out how you want to achieve it. So I did this recently with a lady who had a palsy quite recently, and her husband had mentioned that he missed going out to eat. And the nerves on one side of her face meant that she had quite a lot of food that would get stuck here. And she just couldn't bear the thought of going to a restaurant and having to hook it out or drink through a straw. So we worked out how she'd feel more comfortable going out to eat. So she worked out she'd probably feel happier going on a Thursday rather than a Friday, going to eat at 6 rather than at 7:30, and choosing her own table in a restaurant rather than being guided to one. So there was just sort of thinking about it and then working out how to do it. Things like going out with people after work. You know, if as my patient could only drink out of a straw, with a straw, she felt really conspicuous doing that. But you know, we talked about how it would feel to talk to someone else who was going and say, actually at the minute I can only drink out of a straw. Going to weddings, I hear about so much about weddings and about photographs generally. And the lady said to me recently that she'd been to a wedding and the photographer had shouted out, "Lady in the pink hat, why are you not smiling?" And she was. And it was hugely, it nearly got her into a fight or flight thing, because she was just sort of thinking, what do I do? So, staring is another thing I hear huge amounts about. And how does it make us feel? I'm feeling quite stared at today, because you're all looking at me, but you're all on my side, so I don't mind it. But on a good day, being stared at can feel quite nice. People are looking at me, that's nice. Do I look nice today? On a rubbish day, when I'm feeling vulnerable, it can make me want to run away. And I've got no real answer for it, other than to say that staring, not everyone who stares is unkind. And it's kind of a natural, unfiltered curiosity, and it's human nature for us to be curious about our surroundings. But actually just noticing sometimes that it doesn't feel great. So what we do, it's something called the 3-2-1-GO exercise. And it's kind of a preparation. So for the lady that went to the wedding and had the conversation with the photographer about with a hat, we sort of looked at 3 things to think if someone stares at you. And it's kind of just getting your brain ready for, how would I manage this situation? And 3 things to think might be, I stare too, it's really normal to stare. They aren't judging me. Or do I know them? Or do they think they know me? Why are they looking at me? And it's just sort of having things in the background of your head. 2 things to say. It's entirely up to you. I'll come on to in a minute on the next slide. There's some bits about what to say. But a really important thing is one thing to do. So to try and avoid that panicky fight or flight feeling, have some things in place. And we work a lot with people who have been involved in a traumatic event, and they often find having an anchor really helpful. So you can have a pebble that's kind of your special pebble, or whatever it might be. Some people try tactile things like sort of fluffy things, and they have it in their pocket. And if they find themselves in a situation where their heart's going bang bang, or they're feeling really anxious, just to hold that pebble and to hold the fluffy thing. Put your hands on your tummy and breathe. I'm a massive fan of stopping and breathing, because we don't do it consciously enough, we just run around. And it also brings your heart rate straight down. And put your feet firmly on the ground and wiggle your toes. It's a fantastic grounding technique. Just wiggle, 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 and all of a sudden you're back in the room. And then coping with direct questions. I'm always amazed, not necessarily in a good way, how people feel that they have the right to ask any question of anybody that they see. And I had a lady recently in clinic who had a palsy which was only partially resolved, and it happened some 5 years ago. And she was sitting on a park bench eating her lunch in the sunshine, and a complete stranger came up to her, put his hand on her shoulder and said, "Don't move, I'm going to phone 999 because you've had a stroke." And she hadn't had a stroke, and it was just... The stranger meant well, the stranger wasn't being unkind, but the stranger was also... It locked her back into a place that she felt quite comfortable in. So what we work on is, this is sort of minimum information and close the subject. So it can be, I had what's known as a facial palsy, but I'd rather not talk about it. Answer and change the subject. I have a condition. You're new to this area, I haven't seen you before, so you're just throwing it straight back onto somebody else. Potentially open up a discussion about it. So I woke up one day with a palsy where some of my facial nerves aren't working properly. Body language can be answer briefly, then turn and walk away, or divert is not answer the question at all and just say something like, "It's a beautiful day today." So you're kind of, all of this is, my lady who was sitting on the bench didn't have a clue what to say other than "I haven't had a stroke," but it was quite difficult for her. So I know I'm not allowed to plug the Queen Victoria, but I'm very proud of what we do, and I'm very proud of our work. So if we do offer a specialist outpatient psychotherapy service, and my colleague Sheila's here with me today, we all see outpatients, so you can get GP referral down to us, but otherwise all GP surgeries have access to counsellors, and they can arrange some therapy. There's a big push now due to financial constraints about offering telephone or email or Skype counselling, but if you push hard enough, I'd go for one-to-one anytime. Changing Faces have also got a brilliant website with loads of self-help stuff on it. So that's it. Any questions?